Hi, Nana. You're going to come up here and say hi. Up, up, up. Yes, that's a good Nana girl. Come over here and say hi. Yes, that's a good girl. Are you going to give kisses? You don't think so? Not tonight, huh?
Oh, this meeting is being recorded. Yep. Hi, Nadine. I think your sound is off.
You're right.
Hey, Joan, no long time no see.
Yeah.
Maybe a minute and a half.
How's your week been?
I pass.
That bad?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, my daughter's just gotten out of the hospital, so that's good news.
Oh, sorry
Appendix,
about that.
appendix. What is
Oh,
it
no.
for anyway? But it got swollen and they took it out and she recovered and she's just gotten home today. Sleep.
Good. Good. How old is she?
Gosh, 49. She's going to be 50 in November.
Wow. Yeah.
Age is weird. Guess I was 27 when I had her. I get mixed. That makes.
Well, I had my first one when I was 17.
Oh, wow.
So she's 70 now.
Wow. Wow. I'm 77. That still surprises me.
Yeah, she's a great girl.
All right. My sister, the acupuncturist, always says if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself.
Wow. Yeah, everybody seems to think it's great if you live a long time, but as you get older, it's not so great.
It has its moments.
I mean, you don't want to be sick, but you still at the same time, you don't want to hang around here very long.
No, I know I'm in trouble when I see an old movie and I look up who the people are and what they're doing now and they're gone. I go, oh,
Isn't that something?
yes.
See, yeah, I'm the only one left in my family
Wow.
of 9.
I'm going to go
Of
check
9.
on Richard and I'll be right back.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. My ex is the oldest of 9.
Yeah.
You never met Zero, but Zero's mom.
Yeah. Well, I had 5
Wow.
children.
Wow.
And one of them never got married. He had mental illness and he never got married. But of the 4, I got 12 grandchildren.
Wow.
And then of the and then of that I got 22 great grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And yeah, and now I've got a great grandchild.
Oh, wow.
And she is so cute.
Where are they living? Are they nearby? Can you see them?
Oh yeah. My family we're really close. So I appreciate that. I get to see them all the time.
Great.
That's wonderful.
I don't get to see my grandchildren very often, but they were here last Thursday. That's why we couldn't have the Bible study, because Aaliyah came over and her sister with her kids were here. So
yeah,
got to see them.
Good.
The oldest is old enough to be looking for college.
Mm-hmm.
So they came out here.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, their lives are so busy nowadays. most of them, they're going to school and they're working and then they have families. So you're lucky if you get to see them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard life.
My daughter moved to Buffalo. I haven't seen her since.
Uh, does she like it there?
She does. I guess she does. It's hard to tell, but she seems to. She had a job which she went to get, but it was taking fingerprints, people. And then you get your fingerprints taken, then you get your TSA card. But came across so many nasty people that after a while, I don't want to do this anymore. So now she's
Yeah.
Excel and she's taking other Word programs and other stuff so that she can get better jobs.
Good.
And I say about her husband, is he smart enough? I have no idea what the hell he does. I know he does something, but it's kind of out of my range.
Well, my son Johnny ended up to be a computer engineer, and he'd come over and or software engineer. He'd say this and then he'd say that, and I'd say, "Oh, that's great, John." I didn't understand a bit of it.
But thanks so much for sharing. Leah's still checking on Richard. So how's your life in the last week?
3 weeks.
3. You doing okay, Nadine?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I can't do this, get the stuff done that I used to do, and that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
I got a backyard full of weeds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had some of those to try and put in his zucchini. It's work. They fight against you, all those weeds. They link into each other so you can't get them out of the place you want to plant the zucchini.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about time? I lived in Venezuela for 2 years. I was Peace Corps. Everybody had a different time on their watch. What time is it? 5:35. Mine says 5, somebody 5:20, 5:35, all different. I look across behind you and it says 5:38, and so does the watch on my computer. And so does the watch on my hand. Like all of our time really is pretty well synchronized.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the computers keep all the same.
So it's now 5:39 because I checked that. There it is. They're all in sync with each other. Hi, Leah.
Hi.
How's Richard?
I got the door open for him that he needed, so
Oh, great.
for now.
Yeah. I go to this one meeting and this guy was talking about going to Mount Everest.
Wow.
And so this last week's meeting, he comes online from Everest from 13,000 feet. He says there's a hotel up there at 13,000 feet.
It's closer to the satellites where the signal's going. Wow.
And he looked great. He had his Sherpa with him. The guys that take you on the trail.
Yeah.
He had, and he was a nice looking young man.
Yeah. My sister.
He said it was well worth the trip and everything.
Yeah. My sister was in Tibet and there was a guide who was guiding them around, and I got this postcard. We're having a great time here and we're getting help from the sheep who dance at night. And I went, the sheep that dance at night? Oh no, that's Sherpas who dance at night.
Well, it was actually 9 o'clock in the morning there, and the sun was shining and it was beautiful. And but it was 8. It was about 8 o'clock here.
The next day.
Yeah. It's hard to get your mind around. Huh?
Yeah. So, do you think more people might show, Aaliyah, or should we?
I think we'll get started. This is probably who's gonna get
Okay.
here.
When 2 or more of us are gathered.
Where have you heard the words like transform or transformative?
Transform. When my kids had Transformers.
The little figure that changed from a person into a car.
Right. Those Transformers. Yeah. I remember those.
I used to build those. I built them when I was 18 or 15. I was building radios and not TVs, too complex, but speakers and loudspeaker systems. And transformers were useful. So, because if you have 8 coils of wire here and you have 4 coils of wire there, you've just stepped down the electricity to half or stepped it up, depending on which side you put it on. A transformer changes electricity from one side to the other, which is a transformer. It's not quite, I become Catholic, therefore I'm transformed, which happened when I was 72, in 1972. But that's a transform. Accepting Jesus into my life was a tough one. Being a male, it's really tough to accept another male and you're subservient to him. Even if he's Jesus Christ, it's still something to get used to and understand. And as somebody said this week, Jesus Christ, okay, Christ is not his last name. You got to look at this in a positive way. But transform to me means utterly changing your life, but you're still the same. You've just got a new set of goals or a new set of principles.
So what changed for you at that point? What in your life changed?
People. I met people like John Duria and Bob Jagger, who were 2 priests at St. Anthony's Church, and they were something I'd never seen before. They were bright, they were insightful, and they were Catholics. Not only that, but they were Catholic priests. And being a Jew from New York, that was a revelation. Like, what? But their ideas
So
were so
you changed your ideas of what Catholics were. Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
and that's exactly. And then what they were saying was palatable. It never had been before. It's always like, well, there's Catholics are one thing and Jews who do another, even if they do the same thing, and they're different from each other. You know, Catholics are the most money-making organization in the world, and Jews make money and hoard it. So, like, so what? You know, they're very similar. So, what do you do with that? You use that. You don't use that as your marker. And when I came out here, I had to change.
Yeah, I would argue that neither of those groups, if those are their focus, are actually spiritually seeking.
Jews and Catholics?
Well, yeah,
I mean,
not
the
if they're
people who are
about
focusing on
money.
the money aspects of it, I think he means. If you're
Yeah,
all focused on the money aspect, that means you're not really spiritually seeking.
exactly, exactly. But I could just see that was an example that Jews and Catholics seem, even though they were quite similar, were very different from each other. But I came out here and I went, I like the Catholic point of view. I've been here now since 69 and well, I was in Venezuela for 2 years. So 71, I came here and I could see there was a reason to accept that as something I wanted to live with. And my own personal reason is I like to communicate with people. And if I understand and really mean it, what Catholicism means, then I've got a language that I can talk to other Catholics about without them going, oh, I can't talk to you. You're not Catholic. So I can't really share deeply with what's going on for me, which they could once they realize, oh, you're a Catholic too. You could share deeply about stuff. So for me, it was as much language and being able to communicate with people, as well as a religious calling to, well, if you've ever followed the Enneagram, I'm a 2. That means I'm here to serve. And so this is a way to serve God, people, whatever. Anyway, I'm not leaving anybody a chance to talk. So
Yeah, does anybody else want to talk about anything they felt transformative in their life?
I think I was raised Catholic, but my father was Lutheran, and it was World War II in my house between the two of them. And I just didn't I didn't see anything in it. But when I was just a young mother, right after the birth of my 3rd child, I got very sick and ended up in the hospital. And I was there, and I just went to bed one night and I just said, God, how much longer? I knew there was a God, although I had not gone to church in 100 years. I knew there was a God, and all of a sudden I felt great. I knew I was going to get well,
wow.
and I knew that it was God that had did it. And so when I got out of the hospital, I told my husband, I want to go back to church, and he said, well, he wasn't interested. So I went to church, and I took my 5 kids to church, and I was sitting in the the reason I started going to church, I was living in Alaska, and my my daughter, they didn't have kindergarten up there, and she was a very smart little girl, so I wanted her to go to kindergarten. So this pastor's wife had kindergarten in the basement of this Faith Baptist church in Alaska. So I took my kids there. I ended up going, and I was sitting out in church service, and I read Isaiah 53, and I knew that what all the things that I had been hearing were true, that Jesus had died for my sins, and that it had been predicted hundreds of thousands of years before he was even born. And it made a big difference. So I went forward in that church, and I was baptized, and I've been going there ever since. But I think the most transforming thing has been his word, because I really didn't know that much about.
Boo.
So reading his word through all these years continues to transform me. Every day I read it, and every day I learn something new.
I should write down the reading that you said, because I didn't. I was going to.
Isaiah 53.
Okay. It's so easy. Isaiah 53. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was transformative for you, because when you said that, things got better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They got better. I got well, and I was able to go home and, be a mom. And that's all I wanted to do, is get well.
Yeah.
No,
And, but I knew that it was God who made me well. So I knew I wanted to go to church, but I couldn't go back. I didn't feel like, I couldn't go back to the faith of my mother's, or the faith of my father's, because it was World War II. I'm telling you.
I know. Sounds like you lived through it, though.
So when I tried to when I put my daughter in this kindergarten, and the pastor's wife invited me to church, she said, "Well, Nadine, your children need to be in Sunday school," and I knew she was right. So I started bringing them, and I started coming myself, and I was sitting out we had Bibles in the pews, and I read the Bible, and I thought, oh, this is true, because Isaiah lived how many years before Christ was born, Maria? At least 1,000.
about 500 BC.
Wow.
500. And so when you read that, and it describes his death and his everything, and his crucifixion, it's amazing. It's like, wow. Then I knew it was true.
You want to add anything, Joan?
Yeah. I don't know.
I think I'm looking for more transformation than I've had already. I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's been big changes in my life that have, I guess, transformed my daily habits. My daily life has been changed.
So let's look at some places in the Bible where God talks about transformation. Let's look at Matthew 17:2.
Who's got a Bible?
He was transformed in front of them, and his face shone like the sun. Even his clothes became as white as the light. So that's Matthew 17.
Mark 9:2-3.
I've got that one too, if it's okay if I read again.
Yeah, go ahead.
After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up on a high mountain by themselves to be alone. he was transformed in front of them, and his clothes became dazzling, extremely white, as no launderer on earth could whiten them. I like these translations you have here, Leah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, these are Holman Christian Standard, which is a pretty good translation. So this is about what we usually call in Christian circles the transfiguration, but it's using the same Greek word as Paul is using in Romans for transform. So it points to what Paul is talking about. So we've just read about this transfiguration. What might your response to this transfiguration be? Somebody transforming in front of you so that they were shining and all their clothes became extremely white, and their face
I
shone.
can't imagine that. I can't imagine. I'm sure I would be very, very, very surprised and sort of speechless.
And
Just
shielding your
wanting to
eyes
take it all
because
in.
as everybody repeatedly heard the last couple of days, you cannot look directly at the sun. It will hurt your eyes. So it would have hurt your eyes if you tried to look at somebody whose face was shining like the sun.
Shining like the sun, yeah.
So what do you think the biggest change an ordinary human can make is?
The biggest change a human being can make?
Yes, an ordinary human being.
Mm.
I mean, especially in a positive direction, because I had a stroke and that changed me a lot, but not in a good way. It made me so I can't do a lot of things I prefer to do. But
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I think when you talk about the inner life, uh, I, you know I prayed for years and years for my husband to be saved. Like I said, he didn't want to have anything to do with church. And I prayed for, 20 years. And finally, God already just told me it's okay. Don't worry about it. And I knew it was okay, but I didn't know how or why or when. And then he came to me and he said, I want you to go flying with me. He'd learned to fly. He he started taking pilot lessons and he learned to fly and he wanted me to go. And I told him, no, I don't think so. And he says, what? And I said, well, you don't go to church with me. I will go flying with you. And he got mad at me. And he slept on the couch for like 2 weeks. And he finally came back and he said, well, if I go to church with you, will you go flying with me? And I said, yeah.
Wow.
So anyway,
You never had a
he
chance.
started coming to church, but he never joined church. And at the church I was going to, he in fact, it was Park Victoria Church I was going to, and he never joined the church. He never went forward. Nothing ever happened. And so my girlfriend had started going to another church right over in Fremont, and she said, Nadine, you should come. You'll really like it. So I started going to that church, and he came with me, of course. And then before you know it, he went forward and was baptized and joined the church. I still didn't know when he had been transformed, and it wasn't until he was on hospice care on his deathbed that I found out that somebody had knocked on our door, talk about God answering prayer, and led him to the Lord. And he said he just felt love all over that person. I still to this day don't know who that was.
Wow.
But when it happened, I didn't know it until he was on his deathbed that that's what had happened.
Wow.
So he, even though he was under hospice, he was very happy and he was peaceful and he accepted, he had cancer and he accepted it. And and he passed away very peacefully. So under hospice care.
Mhm.
So I know I believe in miracles, and I do believe God answers prayers.
It's nice when you can see a prayer that's tangible and you can see a result. There was a story, a lady who met a friend at a party years later, but when this happened, she was driving along and there was a really serious accident just next to her. She said, I can't stop. This car is behind me, but she just made the sign of the cross out the window and went on.
Yeah.
Years later, she met that lady, and that lady was going, I was so muddled. I was thinking I don't want to live anymore, but somehow someone made the sign of the cross.
Wow. That's a
And
good story.
I had to come back. I'm curious. I want to know why that happened. And so she came back.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
miracles are tangible.
Yeah. Well, I find that even just saying the Lord's name, when you're in a tough situation, just saying the Lord's name makes a difference. I was a professional driver, and I saw many instances where I saw accidents just ready to happen, and then I'd say a prayer real quick, and for some reason God just changed the situation right in front of
Wow,
my eyes.
wow, tangible miracles.
Yeah, I saw.
Yes,
So
Jesus
I
can
believe
lead
in
to
prayer.
powerful transformations. Let's look at Matthew 17:5.
Who's up for it?
Look at some Matthew 17:5, which is a little bit more about the transfiguration and how we should be reacting to it. So if someone could read Matthew chapter 17, verse 5.
Okay, is it all right if I read?
Yeah, go
Sure.
ahead.
Okay. Um, he was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overwhelmed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him."
So this is about this transfiguration had revealed the truth about Jesus. And
So this was it's at the end of Matthew, so that definitely wasn't the time of the baptism when
no,
that
this
happened.
is about the Mount of Transfiguration. They're
Right.
about up above. So
Mhm.
so it said God was saying he was pleased with Jesus. So what do you think is delightful or pleasing about Jesus? What might some people take delight in about Jesus?
That's a good question.
Well, for sure, his healing abilities and all the people he helped, that brings delight to those who see it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, I think it was his obedience.
Yes, God the Father was certainly delighted with Jesus' obedience. That allowed a lot of their relationship to take place, is how obedient Jesus was to the Father. I also think it was delightful how Jesus could understand people and make connections. He was somebody who could really make connections with people and
Mhm.
have a good conversation with them, and that there could be a real discourse back and forth where they could understand him and he could understand them.
Mhm.
I think Jesus had a real talent for that.
I've taken that phrase into everyday life. And sometimes I've said to my son, You are my son with whom I am well pleased. And it just makes me both me and him feel good.
Mm-hmm. God also commands the hearers to listen to Jesus at this point.
Yeah. I'm paraphrasing from Alcoholics Anonymous, but take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. Listen. That's what he's asking you to do, is listen.
How do you think we can take these delightful things about Jesus and use them to help us listen to him? Because I think as God says, okay, he's delightful to me, listen to him. He wants to connect those two ideas.
I guess I think about forgiveness. I'm trying to follow Jesus. When I forgive, I can't cause miracles, but I can forgive everybody and myself, which is the toughest one to forgive for something that's gone on. Just forgive. And that's definitely a Jesus idea.
Okay, let's look also at 2 Corinthians 3:18 at how this transformation comes to us.
I'll read this one if that's okay.
Sure.
Sure.
He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn
Colossians
over all
1:15.
creation.
That's the next one. Go back up one, 2 Corinthians 3:18.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Here we are.
Okay.
We all, with unveiled faces, are looking as in a mirror at the glory of the Lord and are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory. This is from the Lord who is the Spirit. Wow, that's interesting.
I hate to say it, but it's short enough. Could you say that again?
We all, with unveiled faces, are looking as in a mirror at the glory of the Lord and are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory.
Wow, there's a lot in that.
So just
So,
as God, man was immediately made in God's image. Now that the stain of sin is removed, God is using the connection with Jesus to transform the followers into Christ's image.
and unveiled has a lot of meaning for you. That was it, unveiled?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look in Greek, the word for person is persona, which is mask.
Uh-huh.
Taking off that mask and you see Jesus in yourself.
So let's
You
look
see
at
the
this
Lord.
idea of why we might need to have unveiled faces. Let's look at 2 Corinthians 3:4-18.
Is that what you were reading, Joan?
No, it's the next one down. I'm
Oh,
skipping
okay.
Colossians because I want to go to the veil thing. So the veil thing is
Sure.
in 2 Corinthians.
Okay, I can read that. We
Okay.
have this kind of confidence toward God through Christ. It is not that we are competent in ourselves to consider anything as coming from ourselves, but our competence is from God. He has made us competent to be ministers of a new covenant, not of a letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit produces life.
Whoa. The letter kills, but the spirit produces life?
Mhm.
That's pretty intense.
Now, if the ministry of death, chiseled in letters on stones, came with glory, so that the Israelites were not able to look directly at Moses' face because of the glory from his face, a fading glory, how will the ministry of the Spirit not be more glamorous, more glorious, excuse me, with even more glory? In fact, what has been glorious is not glorious now by comparison, because of the glory that surpasseth it. For if what was fading away was glorious, what endures will be more glorious. Should I go on?
Yes.
Sure.
Therefore, having such a hope, we use great boldness. We are not like Moses, who used to put a veil over his face so the Israelites could not stare at the end of what was fading away. But our minds were closed. For to this day, after reading of the Old Covenant, the same veil remains. It is not lifted because it is set aside only in Christ. Even to this day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their hearts. But whenever a person turns to the Lord, the veil is removed. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. We all, with unveiled faces, are looking as to the mirror at the glory of the Lord, and are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory. This is from the Lord, who is the Spirit.
So according to verse 13, why was Moses wearing a veil?
So that the people couldn't see that the glory in his face was fading?
Yes, they couldn't see the fading of the glory. And this is about the time when Moses received the Ten Commandments, and for a while his face was shining. Everybody was, wow, Moses, he's a prophet. Look, we can see the glory of God in his face. And as it began to fade, he would put on a veil to say, look, I don't want anybody to talk about the fact that it's fading away, and I don't look so much touched by God anymore. He did want to just say, he wanted to keep the idea in people's head that he was this great prophet, and he was clinging on to that, so he wore a veil.
And these are the same people who were melting gold to make golden idols before he came down there, right?
Yes, this is the same people, but this is
Yeah.
later after they had sort of gone over that hiccup. And then he had gone up to the Mount Sinai and gotten the Torah from God, and God had given him these tablets that had the 10 words on them, and they'd also given him some insight, and he came down and said, look, God has some rules for you. And people started to in that first instant they said, oh well, look, it's a prophet from God, we have to obey this, even though afterwards it turned out to be something that was a constant dragging them down because they could never quite obey it perfectly. And they went through many decades where they would get sort of close and then they would stop, and God would just smack them down and say, no, you were not doing it right, you are not paying attention. And it took a long time until the exile, and they came back when they really started really trying to do it as much as they could, and really got to know this is God's land. They really need to do it. So Moses had to accept that, yes, this was a fading glory, and accept, okay, if I'm going to cling to this law that we have, I've got to accept it for what it is, and do with unveiled face. So what are some veils we might need to remove?
Just as a side comment, Dorothy Day from New York and from other places used to say, don't turn me into a saint. I'm a human, I'm doing my best, but you turn me into a saint that you're saying you can't do what I'm doing, and you can. It's important to not, I think Moses was saying that too, is don't turn me into a saint. Don't just make me this impossibly wonderful person who you can never imitate. Yeah, we're all human. You could.
Mm-hmm. Boo, come over here, Boo.
No, actually, it was Mother Teresa. Sorry, I was talking about Mother Teresa, not Dorothy Day. I got my heroes mixed up. Because I've met Dorothy Day, I've never met Mother Teresa.
Boo, come here, Boo.
But I think a lot of times it's hard to see what God is doing on another person because it's internal.
Yeah.
You know, And sometimes maybe years later, we can go back and be reacquainted with them and see a big change.
Yeah.
But day to day, it's because it's internal.
Yeah. Yeah. Healing is from inside. It's internal.
Low battery. Low battery.
Huh?
That's my phone. Wants me to plug it in.
That's pretty clever that it tells you that.
Well, it's annoying. I will do it. I will do it sooner or later.
So does this transformation Paul is talking about seem a little intimidating?
Yeah. But I'm not going to talk because I've talked too much. Somebody else chime in.
Yeah. I guess it's intimidating to think that we would somehow have the powers that Jesus had.
It's intimidating
But
to
I guess
that it's something I need to produce myself. I need to do to myself because I don't
yeah,
think
that's
that I can be that as spectacular as Paul or as Moses. So let's
right.
at Titus 3:5.
Somebody got that? One of you? Two?
I don't think God asked us to do great. He just asked us to be obedient.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Every day, get up in the morning and be obedient to Him. That's all He asks,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever that means.
Yeah, and we can
Yeah.
put this in Titus 3:5.
I didn't get that.
He
Titus
saved
You got
3:5.
that, John?
No, the epistle to Titus, chapter 3, verse 5.
And I think you've got that, Joan, right?
Yeah, I have them all here.
Yeah,
He
'cause
saved
they're from-
us not by works of righteousness that we have done, but according to his mercy, through the washing of regeneration and renewal by the Holy Spirit. So it's something the Holy Spirit does within us, rather than
Mhm.
our righteousness being the cause of it.
So let's also look at the same issue in Philippians 2, verses 12 and 13. Somebody would read that. It's the next verse down there.
Philippians 2, 12, 15,
Yes,
12 through 13.
yes.
12 to 13. Philippians 12, 12 to 13.
2.
Philippians 2.
Oh, Philippians
That has
2.
12 chapters.
Okay.
It's a very short letter.
Be nice to the dog, Richard.
Mhm.
Can I read that?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
go ahead and read that.
Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you both to will and to work for his good pleasure.
That
You're
please,
working, but it's because he's enabling you.
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
he's pleased with you. God's pleased or has pleasure with you.
Yeah, that's sometimes hard to believe, but it's
Yeah.
true.
So, 2 Corinthians 4:16 also talks about why we need God to do this for us. So
Hmm.
somebody read 2 Corinthians 4:16.
I'll read it. Therefore, we do not give up. Even though our outer person is being destroyed, our inner person is being renewed day by day.
So this is something being
That's
done
a
to our
nice thing to think about when you're getting older and you know your body is being destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
but the inner person is being renewed day by day.
Mm-hmm. So what do you picture when you think about God transforming you spiritually? This work he is doing on our inner person.
For me, it's more just enjoying the moment, seeing the beauty of nature, and not being concerned about things I may have done in the past that I'm not pleased with or what my future might hold. Just being here and enjoying the plants and what I see and the people in my life, that's what I see.
And I also think about like how a seed will transform and you'll actually start seeing the plant start forming itself even inside the seed. Even as the seed falls apart, the plant will start to come up. As this
Mm-hmm.
picture
Because
of
everything's
God
contained
doing
in
this,
food.
making you into this, what you're supposed to be on the inside, even as God is eventually going to say, look, you don't need that old body anymore. I make you a new one. You can get rid of the existing body.
Yeah.
God is recycler. Wow.
So next week we're going to go back to, it talks about proving what the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. We're going to look at what is good. And we're going to look at that session in session 5. We're going to look at what is this goodness of God that is the will of God that we're going to approve and test as part of being transformed by the renewal of our minds. So I'll end the recording now so that we can do our prayer time. So